Hello, everybody. Good evening. This is Tomi here. Some of you may have seen me before, some of you may have not, but very briefly, I'm the founder of the Black Women in Science Network, and we are so excited to have you here tonight. We are here for a date with data science, and we have very special people with us today, people from QuantumBlack. I won't do too many of the introductions myself because they can introduce themselves so much better than I can. But before we do get into it, I'm just going to say a couple of housekeeping rules, just so everyone knows what's going on, etc. Just to note, please keep your audios muted unless you're the presenter or you've been invited to speak, and we'll let you know. But please, as we would in person, use the reaction button. So you have the clapping button and all that stuff down there. We'd love to have you engaging with us. Use the chat function throughout. Please do ask questions. That's why we're here. We're giving you have direct access to the people that are behind QuantumBlack. So do use the chat. This is like an amazing opportunity. So ask those questions that they've been burning since you heard about the event. And also just to let you know that the session will be recorded. And we'll let some of the recording will be available after the event. But yeah, so I'll just run you quickly through the agenda and let you know exactly what's going to go on this evening. So first up is me making the introductions, and then I'm going to pass over to Julian, who will give you a quick overview of QuantumBlack and let you know what the company's about, what they do. And then we have three amazing employees from QuantumBlack who are going to tell us a little bit about themselves and introduce themselves. And during this time, this is when you can get your questions in the chat. Like I said, we need all the questions this evening. And after that, we're going to go into the Q&A session. This is why we're all here. We want to get those questions off. We want to get them out. And then we're going to have some announcements by Carl. So I will now pass over to Julian.
Amazing. So I hope you can hear me. Welcome virtually to QuantumBlack. I guess on Zoom, maybe one day we can invite you to our office. I'm Julian. I'm a senior data scientist here at QuantumBlack in London. I'm just here to talk a little bit about QB from when it was founded and what we do now, and then hand over to some individuals to talk about their roles. So QB was born and proven in Formula One, essentially where marginal gains are really, really key. Actually, the difference between winning and losing a race. And data is something that emerged as something that we could give us a real competitive advantage. And the founders of QB, essentially, they reduced this life cycle from having ideas and designs to getting them onto track and then getting better cars and essentially winning races by improving the speed of this design life cycle in F1 cars. And so we still have some links with F1. We still do some projects with them. We also work in a number of other different industries. And so, as you'll see in the next slide, not just F1, we do some projects still on things like pit stop timings and finding the location of cars at the split second of different stages of the race. Also in elite sports, things like basketball, predicting injuries. We also work in healthcare, banking, mining. So a number of different industries where there are difficult problems that we can tackle with data. Just to zoom in briefly onto healthcare, here we have things like reducing the time to market for a new drug. This is incredibly important and allows us to get life-saving drugs into the market as fast as possible, provided they obviously pass the statutory tests. I've just come out of a project where we were modeling sort of variability in drug manufacturing, and that way we can derive process improvements and essentially get manufactured drugs more efficiently, and at the end of the day, get more of them out into the world. So how do we work? We essentially, on the next slide, we help our clients to use their data to drive performance and ultimately also improve human lives. So often this is untapped data from which we'll formulate a data science problem. And then at the end of the day, we'll try and solve this to drive performance. So I was just learning today about some of our work in the COVID pandemic. We have an EPI model, which looks at modeling COVID rates for maybe a country or something, or at the country level. And we can use this to help governments and hospitals plan their emergency care capacity in response to the pandemic. Another one that's quite interesting for me was predicting adverse events in healthcare. So whether someone maybe is going to have a hypertension or a stroke, if we can predict this before the event can actually happen, maybe we can improve patient outcomes, maybe we can reduce unnecessary medical interventions, and ultimately we should be able to save lives and improve the medical journeys which people take. So QuantumBlack, on the next slide you'll see, started out, well, maybe over 10 years ago as a very, very small group of people and our founders. 5 years ago, we were around 40 people. I joined about 4 years ago, which makes me one of the older people or maybe not older, but been in the company for longer than a few other people. Since then, we've grown into multiple different offices in Boston, Sydney, Chicago, Tokyo, and now we've got a vast footprint of QuantumBlack employees and colleagues all over the world. Really, so we're focusing on scaling by combining things like talent, technology, and also our protocols and best practices to make sure we continue learning. So we've seen this massive growth in the last 5 years. We have a few different distinct roles in our project delivery. So we have not just data scientists like myself, we also have data engineers, we have designers, and then we have people focused on delivery, who are maybe people like project managers, those who are who link the data science also with the business. So as you've seen on the previous slide, we work across multiple different industries, which keeps the work interesting. And we're continually learning by building some proprietary tools and assets. So you may have heard of Kedro. This is open source. I'll talk about this in a moment. And then we have a few other tools to make sure we collect our best practices and just essentially speed up the way that we work. And then the other nice thing here is that we work alongside, well, with McKinsey, as part of McKinsey, who help contribute to our teams, things like domain experts and maybe leaders in change management. So when I've worked on a healthcare project in the past, I've had the benefit of having medical experts in the team who you can, as a data scientist, it's very, very, very useful to be able to ask someone about, I don't know, codings for a disease, what is an expected prevalence of this sort of disease, and what are some known features that may be predictive of having a stroke or something like this. So working with McKinsey really helps us to scale our work and our impact across the world. Now, on the next slide, we're going to talk about a little bit about our process. We have our 5 I's. So it starts off in ideation, where essentially we map the process of that the client may have and identify any opportunities for running a data science project. In intelligence, we take the one data science project idea, and then essentially we reformulate it into maybe a regression or a classification or an optimization problem, and really understand how we're going to go about solving this problem. Then inside Inception, we'll actually go and do it. So we'll go and get some data, extract it, develop a data science pipeline and models, iterate on these really quite a lot, and then finally, obviously the last and very important step is making sure that they have the right outputs, they're useful, and align these with the business. So as part of the last two I's, are kind of evolutions of this. So interventions we may extend something that we've done in Inception to have a production model. So a model that maybe runs with live data and is continuously being monitored. And the independence part is also very important, of essentially training up our clients so that we can step away and they can run all these sorts of data science projects by themselves in the future. So we also have, as part of our, not just the data science delivery people, we also have QB Labs, which are very important for scaling our impact. So QB Labs is a sort of the core of QuantumBlack for continuous learning, encoding best practices, and excellence. So there are a bunch of people that one, they're really fun to work with. Also, see if you can spot the QB colleague in one of these photos who's going to be talking. We have, they've got a pretty cool office. We've got some Pac-Men on the walls and also some rubber ducks and a very large creature, which apparently helps with coding. So QB Labs are very useful for us and help us to build some of our assets that we're going to talk about on the next slide. So we have a number of what we call horizontal assets, and these help us to build end-to-end model lifecycle development. But what this means really is that they can be used on any sort of project, on any sort of industry, and they essentially accelerate any work we do. Big one to call out here is Kedro. Kedro is our open source data science pipeline framework or written in Python, or mainly written for Python, which really enables you to build robust, scalable, deployable, reproducible, configurable, and version data science pipelines, which has made a huge difference to the work we do. And now that it's open source, anybody can just go onto GitHub and download it. We also have a few internally facing things. So our QB protocols codifies some of the best practices that we've designed for running projects. Things like, okay, what's the best way of during various different phases of our 5 Is? How do we design a target variable from the data science perspective? How do we pick a unit of analysis or a performance metric? How do we make sure that it's appropriate? Have we got good data? Do we have actually is it going to be fair? Are there any risks involved? We have Studio, which allows us to do some data management, performance AI for tracking model performance over time. If you're familiar with MLflow, it's similar to this. We have Bricks as an internal resource for sharing analytics code. And then the last one here, Causal-Next, is another open source venture where it's a Python library for causality. So essentially we have some structure learning, and we use Bayesian networks here to infer causation rather than simply correlation, which makes a big difference in the sort of conclusions you can make. Okay, and then on the next slide, we'll talk about some of the different roles and people that we have. So we previously mentioned data science and data engineering, and then there was this delivery. So delivery is kind of on the left-hand side here. We have engagement managers who are kind of the project managers, a translator that bridge the gap between the work we do and also the business or the process, and really allow us to get business insight into our models as quickly as possible. Industry experts who are wonderful for when you're a data scientist. And then, again, you can spot one of the speakers on this slide. So you're going to have a couple of introductions for data science, data engineering, and software engineering, so I won't speak about these. We also have designers, which we find really, really powerful to communicate some of the insights from our models very simply and beautifully with visualization. We have a role called the machine learning engineer, which is a bit like a hybrid data engineer and data scientist, but also really focuses on building models in production, and then some of the more software engineering principles that need to be taken into account. And then additionally, very, very important, InfoSec, information security, making sure that we follow data management processes. We get only the data that we actually need, and also technical delivery, so that we're actually building models with the right sort of infrastructure that allows us to collaborate with each other and also with the client. So that's a little bit of an introduction to QuantumBlack, and then we're going to have a bit more of a deep dive into some of the different roles with some introductions to Lise, Lorena, and Anu.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Julian. Thank you so much for that introduction to QuantumBlack. I personally have a ton of questions, but again, this event is not for me, so I will hold off until the Q&A. I hope someone asks the questions that I'm thinking about. But yeah, like, I think it's really interesting to see how much QuantumBlack does. I didn't really know the healthcare aspect of it and things like that, which is personally what I'm interested in. But again, we're here for you guys, not for me. I will pass over to our first speaker in just a short while, but I want to make sure that everyone's aware that please do get your questions in whenever they come to mind, and we'll be keeping a track of them. So if you ask a question now, don't worry, we won't forget. We've got you. We'll ask your question. And our first speaker is Anu.
Thanks, Tomi. Hi, everyone. My name is Anu Arora. I'm a data engineer with QuantumBlack. I've been with QuantumBlack for about 4.5 years, with a total experience of 9 years now. So it's been a long journey so far from that perspective. And if I talk about QuantumBlack itself, like what currently my role is, so I'm basically involved in defining an architecture when we are solving an analytics use cases. And once you have defined an architecture, basically we build an end-to-end data pipelines. When we say, again, data pipelines, what does it mean? Basically where you're taking the data, ingesting, transforming, and creating the data domain models using different tech stack like Python, PySpark, and then finally creating a model input for your data scientist, which my colleague Lise is gonna explain what a data scientist does. So from DE perspective, we design an architecture, build end-to-end data pipelines, and finally is involved in capability building. Prior to QuantumBlack, I was working with Accenture as a .NET and Hadoop developer. And long back, I was a summer intern at a bank. That's my overall journey. And in terms of academics, I've done BTech in computer science at an IP university. It's a university in India. Overall, if I just talk about like from my overall career experience, and especially if I talk about QuantumBlack, like what I really like about this company is working with amazing people like Julian also mentioned that you've got data scientists, data engineers, UI experts, even doctors are there, consultants are there. So working with diverse backgrounds is I think amazing when you're working with QuantumBlack. Another thing is you tend to work with different complex problems. So if I talk about even in my 4.5 years of career, I've worked across 8 different industries, like starting with pharma, banking, insurance, trade, retail, media. So you work across different industries, which is, I think, amazing. And obviously you solve different problems that different companies face. So again, that varies with your tech stack as well as your solving the problem, which is the one thing I really like about this company. You work with adverse problem or a variety of problems to solve with across different markets. And the best, and the other thing, which is the third thing I really like about this company, is traveling, which I'm missing due to COVID. But I hope this is gonna be fine, and then we are again back to traveling. So that is my personal thing. I really like it, and my company also offers that when you work across different clients. So it's amazing. Um, Thinking about like these are the aspects, and obviously what I don't like about my job or when I'm being a data engineer is writing doc streams. So documentation tends to become a little boring, but obviously it's required. So that is one thing. If somebody can give me an automated doc string, I'll be more than happy. So that is one thing I sometimes get a little bored, and like who's gonna write those like it's very healthy lot of detailed doc strings. In terms of personal front, it says at the top, which is what is your favorite and worst food. Uh, I really like dal makhni. It's an Indian cuisine. And in terms of worst, I don't like bitter gourd. These are my like personal something to know about me. And I also like dancing. So I like street jazz, which is I'm missing these days. So I just dance in my own room because I can't go out. I'm currently based out of India. So it's a lockdown here. I hope things are going to be back. But overall, I think with QuantumBlack, it's been an amazing journey. Just because of the people also, and also the work, and that drives my energy. So that's my small gist about being a data engineer with QuantumBlack. And I'll probably pass it over to my wonderful colleague Liz to give it her journey towards data scientist.
Thanks, Anu. Yes, so hi everyone, I'm Lise. I'm a data scientist at QuantumBlack. I joined QB just 1.5 years ago now, so February last year. And my background is, so I did all my studies in France, basically. So my background is in mathematics and computer science, and also I have a specialization in data science. What is a data scientist doing on a daily basis? Basically, so Anu mentioned that the data engineers are designing the pipeline, preparing the data, so that we as data scientists can take the master table and create some models. So it can be a predictive model, it can be a descriptive model, explanatory model, or optimization model. So we take that data and we build some analytical models to derive some insights from that data. And so basically, you need to have a good understanding of the industry. So it's not only a technical role, but you need also to have some hard skills. So it's a bit of programming, a bit of mathematics, and also a lot of soft skills, such as presenting your work to other people. So Julian mentioned that we have some translators who help us basically derive the insights from the model outputs. But you also need to explain sometimes to domain experts. So the clients that we are working with, we iterate with them to make sure that the models make sense. So that's a very interesting role. So what was I doing before QB? So I basically interned in a video game company in Paris, and then I started working for a bit in a consulting firm before joining QB in London. And at QB, as mentioned, we have a lot of different initiatives. So you can do some research, so R&D initiatives, but also client projects, which is the most that we do. And the most interesting part is that you need to mix a lot of different skills. So you need to have this hard skills of machine learning, statistics, programming, but also a lot of analytical thinking, problem solving. And the best part about QB is that we work on complex problems, so you will never get bored. Every project is a new challenge, and you get to learn a bit more about either the industry or a new analytical technique or whatever. For example, one of my favorite projects at QuantumBlack, that was one of my most recent projects, was with a pharmaceutical company, so with healthcare. And what we did is we helped them understand the patient journey by building some predictive model to predict when and how the patients do switch from a drug to another, to which drug they are switching, and basically help the company understand the whole patient journey from start to end. This is very useful because it helps the company to improve their actions, but also helps to improve the patient access to the drug when they really need it. So you really have a great impact, whether it be on the client or on the consumer in this case. My favorite thing about the job is you get to always learn new things. So as I said, I have quite a classical background for a data scientist, but we have a lot of data scientists who come from different backgrounds. As long as you are familiar with a bit of mathematics and you know a bit of programming, you can definitely embrace a career in data science. You need to kind of practice a little bit. So don't be afraid to practice, have some side projects, take some online courses. There are plenty of them in data science and machine learning. Get familiar with what you are doing, basically. And yeah, basically practice more. And so, yeah, you always get to create new approaches. Even if you're applying what you've learned, each project is kind of different, and that's my favorite thing about my job. And the worst thing, maybe Lorena can also build on that, is something that we call unit tests that I don't really like, but that's a minor part. So when you're building a pipeline that is designed to be reproducible and used multiple times, you need to write what we call unit tests. So basically you need to test every part of your pipeline with dummy data that you design yourself. And from my opinion, it's not the best part, but maybe a software engineer will have another answer, but it's really needed if you want to have your work being reproducible, and if you want to catch whenever something changes in your pipeline. These are designed to catch like the error that you're going to have if one changes impacts the rest of the pipeline. So yeah, that's it. If you have any questions, just pop them in the chat, and I will hand it over to Lorena now.
Cool, thanks, Liz. Yeah, about unit tests, I don't think anyone really likes writing them. I think if anyone says that, they're lying, but it's necessary to have them. Cool, so hi everyone, I'm Lorena. I'm a software engineer at QB, more specifically QB Labs, that was mentioned earlier. So I'll go ahead and compress my life story in 5 minutes for you. I'm originally from Romania, and I got exposed to computer science and programming while I was in high school there. I had no strong feelings about it, but I realized I was getting pretty good at it. And then I started to like it and thought that'd be a cool thing to do for a job. I moved to the UK for university and started a computer science degree at University of Bristol. This is also where I had my first summer job, which I thought was kind of a fun story. The IT department was working on improving the Wi-Fi network and required signal reading in every building, in every room on campus. So a group of 5 of us were walking around all summer with a laptop, clicking away, taking these readings, and getting easily 20,000 steps in a day. It was the most random thing to get paid for, but I loved it. So I then completed my Master's of Engineering at Bristol. So after 4 amazing years, I went to London, moved to London, joined an investment bank that I had interned for before. And then 20 months later, I joined QB, which is where I've been ever since. So for more than 2 years now. So I am not client-facing, but I work on assets that serve the colleagues that are client-facing to make their life easier on a client engagement. I work on a tool called Kedro, which you would have heard of today. It's written in Python, and it helps structure data science projects and data pipelines in a clearer way that's in line with software engineering best practices. It also enhances collaboration, as it makes it easier for multiple team members to work on the project, split the work effectively, but it also makes it easy for people to drop in and out of a project and still find their way around. Kedro has also been open sourced just over 2 years ago, which means the code is public for everyone to see, and anyone in the community they can contribute to its improvement. So as a software engineer, my job is to help identify problems, figure out solutions to those problems, and break down the solution in incremental steps. It's not just about writing code and fixing bugs and writing tests, but also about communicating and brainstorming on technical architecture, as well as reviewing and approving other colleagues' code before it's merged into the main code base. What else? We work in sprints of 2 weeks, which means we only pick up work for the next 2 weeks and commit to delivering that before we move on to something else. And then also in software development, you can specialize in either backend or front end. You can think of front end as what you see on a website and the interactions with the website, and front end what happens in backend what happens backstage. So the interaction with the database and other calculations. And then if you're a rock star and you can do both, you're called a full stack engineer, and you're happy to do both backend and front end. One of the more fun features I worked on while at QB was writing a plugin that was exposing an API or an application programming interface for a product to be able to be used with a web app. And what this means in plain terms is if someone was to create a UI and click a button on the UI, it could trigger one of the actions defined in my plugin, i.e. trigger a pipeline run or monitor the status of a pipeline run. In terms of the most satisfying and easily my favorite part of being a software engineer is seeing problems that at first seemed impossible or unachievable get solved and completed step by step. Like I said, we have to break down big work streams into easy, manageable chunks. And at first, you may not even know for sure where that will lead you. You just need to keep iterating. And seeing that progress, and especially the end state, is very, very rewarding. And now the not so glamorous part of the job, particularly for us as an open source tool, is when I have to turn down a user who normally also writes code day to day. I need to turn them down on a feature request and make them understand the reasoning behind the rejection. Sometimes it's the fact that their idea is not aligned with our technical vision and roadmap, and it's outside of our scope. But sometimes it's just that they've identified a valuable problem, but they're too attached to the solution. Users may not know what is possible and overlook other better approaches. And so we focus on the problem and how it fits in the wider workflow so that we can find a better abstraction that maybe we can solve for multiple similar problems. And developers are normally a highly opinionated bunch. So it's important to know how to structure your arguments and in a convincing and a productive way. So I talked a lot. That's it from me. Feel free to leave questions in the chat if you'd like to know more about software engineering, and I'm happy to answer them. And with that, I'll hand it over to Tomi for leading the Q&A session.
Thank you all for those quick introductions to what you do. And I'm so sorry that you have to go through unit test. I mean, who knew something could be so bad? Yeah, but there are some questions coming in. Great, and we will just jump into them when everyone gets back on stage and is ready for us to do so. We'll give you a minute to get your questions in. Just keep them coming. Don't worry if it's too late. If we do have probably more questions than we have time for, but what we might be able to do is we might be able to get some answers at a later time and then send them to you in the feedback or in the follow-up email. So we'll start with a general question. So the first question is, this goes to everyone, all three of you. What is the work environment like at QB, really quickly? Just for, if you're a newcomer and you've walked in, it's your first day, what would you say the work environment is like?
Very friendly. And I think it's quite easy to strike up a conversation that's not about work as well, which I really appreciate, especially coming from a bank where even like a pub chat was a work chat. Here is very easy to talk to people. People are very approachable, and it's yeah, it's just a fun atmosphere, I think, if I had to describe it.
Nice. No, that's good. That's good. Anu, do you have anything to add to that?
I think Lauren mentioned it quite well, and it's quite fun. And also you do get assigned a buddy here also, where you can just reach out to that person. And since you're new to organization, you have no idea, that person can help you start in the starting career, and your mentors to also guide you in your career, like how the future can look like in the company. So you have a buddy who's you can ask any questions, and also you have a mentor who can help you define your career in the company. So I think it's amazing to start with something like that.
Great. Lise, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, not much. I think they're right. We have a very strong sense of community at QB, so everyone is always happy to help you out if you need it. Also, like informal chats, like coffee chats, are welcome. So it's a very friendly atmosphere, especially when you're a beginner to learn. It's a great atmosphere. Yeah.
That's great. That's great to hear. I will ask this. So someone has asked and they've said, I'm interested in knowing the difference between a data analyst and a data scientist at QuantumBlack. How does a person ensure that they are positioning themselves correctly? And how best can you identify a project to present your self-taught skill sets?
That's a good question. I think the data analyst role, and Julian, correct me if I'm wrong, but would be more a translator kind of role. So data scientists are really focused on the modeling, like we design some predictive models. You need to know a bit of programming, like not a bit, but you know how to do some programming to implement your models as well. So it's not only about analyzing the data, doing some charts, like reporting what's happening, and like, deriving some insights from the distributions that you see in the data and things like that. A data scientist is one step further. You need to derive some like models, like you generate some insights and some value from the data by building some models. So in terms of skills, I would say that the data science role requires a bit more of hard skills. So programming, mathematics, statistics, machine learning. You don't necessarily need to be a machine learning champion to be a data analyst. I think you need to kind of have the whole analytical thinking and logic, but you don't necessarily need to have all these like programming skills to be a data analyst.
No, that sounds good. Anyone, this is another part of that question that anyone can feel free to answer. How does one ensure that they are positioning themselves correctly in terms of the difference between a data analyst and a data scientist?
Maybe Julian, you want to take that one?
I was going to say also a data analyst, this is kind of answering the first part more, is probably more closely aligned with the business analyst role that we have within McKinsey, where essentially you have more of a focus on the business and less on the sort of theoretical statistical side of a data science problem. So I think it's basically, if you want to position yourself as either a data scientist or data scientist or a data analyst, it's going to be more this question. Am I more interested in the business side or am I more interested in sort of the theoretical side?
Okay, I see. And would the previous experience be different for people applying for these roles, or would they kind of be assigned once they get into the company?
I think traditionally a data scientist has come from a science background. So maybe maths, maybe computer science, but also physics, engineering, but also all of science, or what you really need is a scientific mind and also some experience in machine learning and statistics.
Yeah, no, great. No, thank you for answering that. Thank you for answering that for us. I will move on to another question. I think this is an interesting one. And it's a general one that we're getting quite a bit. What data science classes would you suggest for beginners?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think there are lots of online courses currently on Arora or EDX, for example. These are great platforms if you want to learn a bit more about data science, like concepts. You can also practice, like there are some websites such as Kaggle, like there are some data science challenges that you can do to like kind of practice the skills that you've just learned. You can also use HackerRank. This is also, I think Lorena and Anu can also say something, like you can also practice data engineering and software engineering skills on that platform. So all of these platforms, I can just put them in the chat.
That would be great.
But these are like tools that you can use to kind of like learn these skills that you would need to embrace a career in a data science role. Yeah, I think the key is really practicing whatever resource you're using. Just practice and know the concepts that are behind what you're doing.
Great. No, thank you. Did anyone else have anything to add, just quickly? No, great. Okay, don't worry. We've got loads of questions, so it's fine. We've got someone who is a biologist, and they've said that their coding in R is in the beginning stages, but they still want to contribute to the data analysis as much as possible. So what would you like suggest in that case? How do you, is it again practice, or are there other things that you can do to position yourself to be a content expert or consultant in organizations like yourself?
So yeah, at QB, like maybe I'll let Anu answer that as well, but for QB we mostly do Python. So if the person is targeting QB, I would advise to learn a bit more about Python, but R is also a good like language to do some machine learning. So it's perfectly fine to start with R, I would say. Okay,
that's good. That's a great tip though, guys. Python is what QB are using, so get on it. Okay, we'll go on to more questions. We've got tons. Thanks for asking questions, guys. Lorena, we've got a question specifically for you. During your talk, you mentioned that you like difficult problems. Does it ever come to a point where there are problems that can't be fixed?
No, nothing is unsolvable.
You like that attitude?
I think if we can't think of a solution, then we either park it and come back to it later and see if it resurfaces, because we might have more context the second time it's being raised by a user, or the third time it's being raised by a user. Oh, okay, like this is more of a pattern. We can think more about this pattern rather than one isolated incident. That makes sense. But no, everything is solvable eventually. I want to believe.
No, that's great. No, thank you. Another question that is fielded to anyone who's willing to answer. If you're self-taught in programming and data analysis, etc., what's the best way to present your self-taught skills? For instance, if you don't have a background that specifically, I mean, it's obvious that you have these skills. What's the best way to present your skills, for instance, maybe when you're applying or on your CV or an interview?
Like programming skills.
Go on, Julian.
Right. This is a tricky one, I guess. I think one useful way is Lise mentioned at some point Kaggle. So if you want to, I guess you need to some way of demonstrating that you've learned these skills. Mm-hmm. If you take some online courses, you might be able to get some certification. But something like Kaggle, if you can do well in a Kaggle competition, you can really demonstrate that you're sort of up there with the best. Let the rest of the group see if they have any other good suggestions.
I think also if you want to showcase your programming skills, you can also look online and see if there are any open source projects that you might be able to contribute to, or just by doing some of the courses walk you through a project, like online courses or program. They walk you through a project, so that helps you build up a portfolio, kind of like on GitHub, which is where a lot of code repositories live. So if you point them to a GitHub link, they can have a look at how, like, your style of coding and what sort of things you work on.
Nice.
That would be a thing.
Great.
Overall, hands-on experience would be required. Theory, it's not gonna work. So you need to learn at least one programming language, and that's gonna help you position anyway in the role you're interested in.
Great. Yeah, I think that's quite clear, and I think that's a good thing for people who are here to know. Just showcase your skills. Like, if you've worked hard to learn a language, to go and show it off, and just make sure that the people that you're applying to know that you can do what you say you can do, I guess. And actually, while we have you, someone is prying into your past. They would like to know, you mentioned that you worked at a bank previously. You didn't go into exactly what your role was there, so they're interested in knowing what was your role there, and was always your aim to become a data engineer? Like, what was your, like, more specifically about your journey to becoming a data engineer?
Okay, I'll start. So in that bank, I was just an intern doing their reporting tool. It was in my past college. So I was using DataStage as their platform. It was like a 2 or 3 month study where I was just understanding how basically the bank is positioned, what their current reporting tools are, and helping into bits and pieces. But throughout my journey to data engineer, I started as a .NET developer. So I was working in a bank, and while working through that journey, I've learned different coding over principles over the period of time and applied across different use cases. To be honest, then the boom started happening, analytics, Hadoop in the market, big data. And I was like, what's all this? And I usually get bored with one technology or one thing that I'm working at. So I actually started looking opportunities within my company, like if I can switch from .NET to something Hadoop, which is coming in the market, and it's in demand also. And it was I kind of started enjoying. I took some courses, started learning about that tech stack, and started looking for opportunity within my company. So that was my one journey when I got to know that this is in the market. I did some research to understand that this is a keen experience or something that I like, and look for opportunities, and then made a switch within my company itself in Accenture to understand what that role is. And I can get more experience overall with that also, with the theory I have into practical.
Nice. No, I like that. I always like hearing about different journeys and all of you seem to have different backgrounds, and you've all ended up in the same place, and it seems like a diverse place in terms of skill set as well. So that's great to know, and it's also great for people who are applying. But yes, great. Another general question, we'll give this to whoever wants to answer. what is progression like at QuantumBlack? For instance, are there career paths? Are there programs? Do people tend to stay in the same roles for a long period of time? What does a long-term career at QuantumBlack look like?
Yeah, so there is a pretty clear pathway in terms of role progression. From the most junior is fellow, then consultant, senior consultant, junior principal, and so on. And I think that the key, the theme throughout each progression is you showing growth and you showing taking responsibility and taking leadership. And this may take different forms depending on the role that you play. So as I said, I'm not client facing, so someone else could maybe describe a bit more. But for me as a product engineer, it would mean taking leadership of complex features, or coordinating with different teams on getting their user feedback for developing a certain work stream in the product and so on. So the sense of ownership, I guess, is the key theme here.
Great. Did someone want to add to that about the client-facing roles?
Happy to. So I mean, the career path that Lorena described is also accurate within the client-facing roles. We have a half-year review cycle, so you're constantly getting feedback from all of your peers on your performance and how you're doing. And essentially, yeah, working towards this sort of career path. And then there's also the opportunity of maybe sidestepping. So as a data scientist, you can either go towards like an expert data scientist, so one of these principal roles, or you can actually switch at some point to go to more into the translation. So maybe the sort of the data analyst route, and then you can go into project management, and then essentially you can pick what you want to do, and these options are available.
Yeah, that's good. And it sounds like people at your company don't get bored. I mean, you can either go up, you can go sideways, you can just, there's a lot of things to do. And I think that is a perk of probably working at a company that has such a diverse amount of roles. In that, someone has asked, what support is there for staff? It's a very general question, so please take that as you want, whether it's professional support, academic support, anything else like that. Yeah.
That's a very general. Annie, do you want to start? Oh.
Yeah, I can add two supports which suddenly came in my mind when the question arrived. So professional support, as I mentioned, mentor. So you will have a mentor assigned to your career where you can reach out to that person anytime, like what you want to do in your career, any questions around, like, are you facing these issues? So that kind of support is there. Another support is on the academic, like for example, if you want to do any training, certifications. So every now and then you will get a couple of links that there are a couple of tools where you can enroll yourself. It's a company ID already created, like for Udacity or Udemy. You can create your login credentials and can do any courses over that tool. There could be other specifications around generalized specific boot camps or trainings being conducted for certifications. Like you want to do a Kubernetes dev specific certification. So you will be trained like a 3-day, 4-day boot camp, and then you can enroll for the certification. And again, that certification would be sponsored by the company. So you can enroll for those certifications. So academic wise also, there is a great support by the firm to make you upskill in your career and don't get stuck to one thing. Anything else, guys?
I guess on the academic side, as a data scientist, we have 2 academic conferences we can attend a year, which is pretty good and allows you to keep up to date. There's diversity and inclusion, and so there are some diversity leaders you can go to if you have any sort of issues with other employees, or if you feel like you're being badly treated. There's obviously HR and personal development people you can speak with. And then I think with McKinsey, there are other things like a anonymous ombudsman service if you want to just confidentially talk about any sort of support issues with another person.
Great, no, that sounds good. And yeah, I think that really answers the questions. And I hope whoever asked that, you feel confident that there will be support for you if you do end up at QuantumBlack or anything like that. We are cutting close to time, so I'm going to ask this last question because it's come up a few times. And the question is, are there any internships or training opportunities or graduate jobs at QuantumBlack?
Can we pass it to Carl?
That's actually a good point. We can, you guys have like jumped ahead on the agenda, and we'll answer your question. We promise we will answer your question. But in the meantime, I do want to thank the four of you, Anu, Julian, Lise, and Lorena. Thank you so much for speaking with us this evening. It's been great to have you, and I hope you guys have all enjoyed. Please, like, either give them a round of applause, a clap, a hands up, a thumbs up as your reactions if you've enjoyed their talks. And if you did have any more questions, please do send them to us. You have our contact. Please do send them to us and we'll see what we can do. If there are any specific answers that we can get you, any communications, if there's anything we missed, we will be sending a follow-up email. So these links you can see, we'll get them to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to pass over to Carl, who will just be making some announcements and closing for us.
Cool. Thank you very much, Tomi, and the rest of the team for speaking today. Yeah, thank you for coming today, and I hope you enjoyed listening and learning a bit about some of the roles that we have here at QuantumBlack and also what we do. As you can see, we have many talented individuals who come, from different backgrounds, and some also traditional science related backgrounds before transitioning into data science in their own paths. And yeah, if you've enjoyed learning about these roles, and interested in exploring more deeply, maybe more like a data engineering role, a data scientist role, we're hoping essentially to provide, mentorship or even deeper technical mentorship to pair some of our colleagues with people here who might, want to specifically learn a bit more about what a data engineer does in a day-to-day work. What kind of things can you start learning and have maybe regular catch-ups and feedback on work you do. If that's something that's is interesting and you would like to inquire more about, please reach out to Tomi at admin Black Women in Science Network, and also we'll have on the feedback form, we'll have room for you to express your interest. QB is always hiring and it's always growing. As Julian said at the beginning, we have offices, maybe 10, 11 offices around the world, 500 people, and we keep growing and have so many roles. So to answer some of your questions, we have graduate jobs, we have experienced hires, but because of all the varied roles, sometimes it's good to get connection and mentorship on specific roles just to know what you're applying for. So a good way is if you're interested in this sort of technical mentorship path, then please reach out, and we'll get back to you with more details about how we could help you in that journey if transitioning into data science is something that you're interested in. So yeah, if you could go to the next slide. So please scan the QR code and fill in the feedback form, and hopefully you enjoyed today. And here's our social, so follow us at Twitter and Instagram, and again, any other questions that we weren't able to answer, please send them to Tomi and we'll get them back to you as well. So yeah, I want to thank everyone for coming today, and thank you, Tomi, and the team as well for presenting. Back to you, Tomi.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Like you've said, like Carlos said, I'm so excited that they're able to offer some technical mentorship. That's amazing, and that's not an opportunity that comes about every day. So I would encourage you to take it up if you are interested. And like you said, like they've said, QuantumBlack is such a diverse company, so it would be great for you if you're interested in applying to get that kind of one-on-one, like kind of hone in on your skill, realize where you might fit in the company, and just get that advantage over other people. Why not? So yeah, so do scan the QR code, give us your feedback, and please a massive round of applause and virtual thank yous sent out to everyone at QuantumBlack who's here tonight and who have made this event possible. We're going to say bye here. We'll have a follow-up email, and the recording of this event will be made available. But this isn't the last you'll hear of us, so do stay connected on QuantumBlack social media. We'll send you our social media, and have an amazing evening, guys. Thank you so much again for coming. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys and gals.